There was a lot of interesting news at Tokyo Game Show this year, but today I want to focus in on one particular company with a little tease that they had, an announcement showcasing a very specific product that I find interesting, and I thought you guys may as well. And that company is Hyperkin. I think the last time we talked about them may have been with the Retron SQ, the square little thing that played Game Boy games. I mean, it emulates Game Boy games, but plays them nonetheless, you know. Just the way it works. I don't know. I've talked about quite a few of their clone consoles in the past. And today we got another one to talk about, the Retron GX, which I find intriguing, but we'll get into that. So it was showcased at the Tassai booth from the way it looks, which is a subsidiary of the Dashin Electronics Group. So I had to start digging into these companies. So I never heard of them before. But this Tassai, they had some interesting things showcased at their booth, like this retro mini TV. Looks similar to things I've messed with in the past, but a little nicer? I don't know. But yeah, they had a lot of cool stuff going on, but I had to dig into it a little further, find out who owns who, what's up with what, even though it doesn't really matter that much. But Dashin Electronics, they're a Chinese company making peripherals, right? A bunch of different electronic devices for gaming machines, some generic stuff, some partnerships with some decent companies and whatnot. I was like, oh, so is Hyperkin owned by them? I'd heard all sorts of things before in the past about who owns Hyperkin. I don't really care, but I found it interesting because, like, I was like, oh, maybe they're owned by the Embracer Group. I know one of their competitors, which I can't name them, it has never been announced, but it's confirmed, essentially. You do some digging, is owned by Embracer Group. So I thought, oh, maybe they're owned by them too, but I don't think they are. But Tassai, Andrew Steele, he's MBA PhD. He's the CEO of Tassai Denki. Then he's also the director of business development for Dashin Electronics, then also the senior tech consultant part-time for Hyperkin. He's worked for Hyperkin for a while. So my assumption is, even though it doesn't matter, that Hyperkin's attached to these guys, right? They're owned by Dashin. Not that any of this matters. I mean, it was just more curiosity on my part to find out how they're all connected, because I'd never heard of Tassai Denki before. At least I don't think I have, or Dashin Electronics. So I just wanted to see how they were all connected. Yeah, you know, come to your own conclusions type of thing. Doesn't really matter a whole lot. But yeah, so a lot of people were taking pictures at this event, at that booth. And Hyperkin not only had like these posters, 1987 Forever Retron GX posters up, but they also had like demo units for people to play. And we'll be taking a look at an article with some of that stuff in a second here. But I found this interesting. Also, that thing that's above my head, little placard or little card that like explained it. I'll put the translated version up that, you know, I translated through Google Translate, right? You know, technology, dude. But essentially just like, hey, it's 1080p console. And just like their previous consoles, some people may or may not be interested for several reasons. One thing is this is an emulation machine. You can put in your Hue cards or your as they call them, TurboGrafx turbo chips. I think most of us just, you know, Hue cards, but whatever. You put your game in there, it dumps the ROM, then it emulates it. Hyperkin's been, you know, part of some controversies in the past, like several other companies, about using unlicensed for commercial use emulators type of thing. And I don't know if that's going to be the case here. I'm not making any accusations, but I kind of have this worry with their emulation machines. If they're not feature rich, what the hell's the point? Because if somebody has a bunch of Hue cards, right? Like, you most likely own the original machine. What are you going to want an emulation machine for? Does it feel better to emulate the ROM dumped off your personal, you know, physical media? Maybe. I actually see some people who do like that, and that's fine. But I would imagine this is not going to be under $100, just because prices have been going up and their previous like stuff has been in like the $80, $90 range. So I would imagine it's going to be the same thing here. But yeah, they had that announced. People were playing it. They had that specialist controller. I don't know if this is like updated at all over their previous version, which I thought was okay when I used their controller. But here you go. I do like how they have like, oh, I could use PC Engine controllers or USB controllers. That is nice, but you got to keep in mind it's emulation, right? That's all it is, and some people may be cool with that. Some people may not. Now, we don't have a ton of information. Like, we don't see the back here. It has HDMI, but Is there a SD card slot? I'm pretty sure there would have to be for like firmware updates. Like the Retron 77 had a micro SD card, and then you could hack it and add a bunch of games. Maybe this will be the same thing. But, you know, the one reason that I kind of liked the Retron 5 before was because it had where you could back up your saves from your cartridges. Like, I didn't really care for the system overall in the sense that I wanted to play my games off of it, but I found it useful. And the main thing I found it useful for was if you had games and you needed to like change the battery and you had save files that you did not want to lose, you could pop it in there, back up the save file, remove the cartridge, change the battery, put it back in, and then put your save back on that cartridge. Like, it was useful. But these later consoles that they've been making really don't have anything like that. It's just basic. Pop in your cart and play. And not all games will play correctly. Like the Game Boy one, Game Boy Advance was kind of all over the place. And, you know, I would imagine this shouldn't be too bad. But there are going to be some of those Hue cards that may have, like, additional memory or chips or whatever that could give this thing problems. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. You know, my thing is like these guys, you know, they've announced all these things in the past, like the Ultra Game Boy. Nothing ever came of that other than when they announced it at CES. It was like a metal shell and looked all cool. And people were like, oh, it's going to be under $100 coming out later that year type of thing. And then it never came out. Like, and then at E3, they showed it again. It was different. And it led people to believe that this first one that was a prototype was just like a Game Boy Light reshelled with the Hyperkin logo on it, because there was like demonstrations that showed like Nintendo's copyright when you booted the game type of thing. I don't know, but nothing ever came of that. And then same thing with the Retron Ultra 64, the Nintendo 64 console. I kind of get wary with these things with Hyperkin. I would, you know, imagine this looks like it's further along and easier for them to do than the Nintendo 64, but we'll have to wait and see. You know, I do like, you know, the TurboGrafx and PC Engine, but the only clone console I really cared about was the Duo from Analog, and this thing kind of flew under the news radar as well. We haven't heard anything about this in ages now. You know, Analog can't even get the pockets out to everybody at this time, so I would imagine this has been delayed for a while. But this thing was supposed to be like $200 and could play CD, disc-based games, and Hue cards. And it's an FPGA system, which, you know, you can argue it's hardware emulation, software emulation, you know, whatever. It's not the original thing, so it's, you know, there could be differences versus playing on the original console, but typically with FPGA, it can be like, you know, the accuracy could be quite a bit better than a lot of emulation out there and stuff like that. And a lot of people do dig this kind of stuff. So for people with physical media, hey, you know, having this as like a backup system, especially for those discs, that's kind of cool. And it was supposed to be $200, but yeah, I think when they finally do come out with this thing, it ain't gonna be $200 anymore. They might want to change. They might want to update their website, because yeah, there hasn't been any news. But this is the only one I've really been interested in. But if this PC Engine Retron GX comes out at a reasonable price, I'll pick it up to, you know, give you guys some thoughts on it. Should be coming out next year sometime, release in 2023, just because they're not complete with it yet. You know, they're still working on it. Probably that emulation they got to get straight. We'll have to wait and see, but let me know what you guys think. Really do appreciate y'all. Bye.